Well, let's turn our attention now over to the markets, and this week we had the opportunity to head out near Seward, Nebraska to catch up with none other than Mike Briggs. We got his thoughts on the cattle markets. Here's our conversation from Wednesday morning. Good week to talk to you. Tuesday, rough day in the cattle markets.
Yeah, they're trying really hard to break this thing. It's been disappointing. I think you've got funds pressing on it a little bit. You're in that time of year where you get a little bit of a swoon, but we're also to the point where the swoon should be over and we should start grinding higher. Now that might take till the end of October, but we will grind higher into the end of the year. It's not going to be a rocket shot or anything, but it will grind higher. I think the swoon has lasted a little longer because of the consumers feeling a lot of pressure from the inflation and the incredible lack of leadership in Washington. And you know, those dollars that could have gone to steak are going to gasoline. So I think that's hurting us a little bit.
Talk more about consumer demand coming up here in a second. I want to break down the live and feeder cattle markets in your perspective as the feeder guy here, trying to buy feeder cattle. Your thoughts on the price we see here early October?
You know, how can you really complain? You're only $5 or $6 off the all-time high, but do I feel I'm being treated fairly? No. Do I need all of it? No. But yet, well, we want to get what we want to get. We want to get the most we can when it's our time to make hay, and it's our time to make hay. Now, the Packer's been getting beat up a little bit, and I really don't feel bad for him because he was making $500-600 a head for way too long. Now he's down to a break even, maybe a little less. He's trying to pressure this thing because beef has slowed down, so maybe he can carve himself out a margin. Whether he gets it done, I don't know. A lot of guys sold early yesterday down south because the hedgers, with the break in the board, it made the basis good, so they dumped. And we're getting into one of those situations. It's a lot more fun as a cattle feeder when cash is leading the board, but we're getting back into this deal where the board's leading cash, and we've lost our positive basis, so it's not quite as much fun, but kind of is what it is.
Just reading some chatter online. Seems like the consensus is the market's going to be correcting itself much quicker, obviously, than the way it built itself up. Is that your thought too? If prices do break here and continue to go down, it's going to be quick?
I think we've broken our thing. No, I just think it's going to be a slow grind higher. But you're going to get that week where they're bidding 288 or trying to bid it at 286, and we get it popped back up to 292 where it probably should be. You're going to get that. I don't know when, but probably more towards the end of October. And then, like I said, I think we just grind higher. Now, there's a couple other things going on. Cattle are going to be big because corn's as cheap as it's been in a couple of years, so it pays us to put the pounds on. And so guys are going to hold them because of that, and guys are going to hold them because you can't afford to replace them because the price of feeder cattle is ridiculous. Great for the rancher, not so good for the feed yard guy.
Okay, you kind of brought up and teed up what's going on at the Packer level, but DTN came out with a report this week talking about slaughter speeds, and I think they noted that if you take out 2020, we're the slowest that we've seen in terms of the number of cattle processed in a week over the last 5 years. What's going on from your perspective? Well,
you've been able to get away with it. The first thing was once beef started to break, the Packer slowed down the chain because he doesn't want to keep losing money, and demand is not good enough that the product's not getting pulled through. So they've slowed the chain down. They've backed some cattle up, tried to get this beef, take the supply away, get the beef market, get some traction. It's just a bad time of year to get traction in beef. After Labor Day, we always swoon. I think it'll come back up. I'm really concerned about the consumer and his available, his extra cash to buy stuff. They talk about credit cards debt being all-time high and all this mess. And I think that's going to inhibit us from going and making new highs again at this time. But I think we can grind back up to where we were, get back in 295, 296 type of level in the beef, and get back up close to 190 in the cash again.
All right. Keep an eye on that. Wanted to make sure I include a viewer question that came in this week from a farmer feeder out there. This is honestly something I asked you about a year ago, so kind of an update on your thoughts. For the guy out there, smaller producer, cow-calf, is it worth feeding out the couple loads of cattle you have for the year, or is now the time maybe to let the bigger guy play the market?
It's a great question because feeder prices are really high. So a guy can just take his money, not have the stress, not have the worry, but corn is cheaper. If you raise your own corn, the cattle market's pretty good. I think it's worth yet taking the risk to take them on through, because I think prices next April, May are going to be pretty good. Now, you are taking on more risk. You're going to go have a headbutt with Mother Nature in the wintertime, which is never, we lose that headbutt way too often. Now, we've been lucky the last couple of years. I hope we get lucky again, but I would tell the guy to feed him again this year. Now, next year, we'll see. The cattle cycle is getting disrupted a little bit here because of Mother Nature not letting it rain. Because if it doesn't rain, people aren't going to retain heifers because they don't have any feed because it doesn't rain. They start retaining feeder or heifers, then the feeder supply is going to get really tight, and the beef supply should get a little tight. So then, you know, maybe a guy will be okay, but we'll see. Typically, when this thing rolls over, it rolls over hard, but I think we're a couple years from that because it's got to rain.
All right, Mike, we'd like to give you the final word, your little advice you want to share with the viewers.
The biggest thing I'm going to tell producers is fight. Just fight. Do not cave to these packers. Yeah, they've kind of got us here for a minute, but we've got to keep fighting the cash. I was at a Nebraska cattleman meeting yesterday, and kind of my final statement, because I'm going out, I said, guys, I just implore you, I beg you, do whatever we can do to support the cash market. I'm really disappointed that Senator Fisher's bill has kind of languished and died. We need that. Captive supply is getting so big, it's putting so much pressure on our cash market that if we're not careful, our cash market's going to go away, and then the whole thing falls apart. And so, fight. Try to get everything you can for your cattle because you deserve it. How about that?
Appreciate your thoughts, Mike.
Thank you.